Errors that people make when doing double kettlebells, probably 4 things. Kettlebells tracking below the line of the knee, not staying close to the hip, not pausing in rack position on the way up and the way down to emphasize your standing structure, not locking out the elbows overhead, and not letting the kettlebells drift back behind you. This is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to talk about the double kettlebell swing. The double kettlebell swing takes the place of something like a heavy deadlift in a lot of people's training. The problem with barbell deadlifts is that they're very hard for most people to do at home. If you have a gym or a garage or a barn, sure, you can do them. If you live in a city in a 5th floor walk up, or if you live in a dorm room, or if you live someplace where you cannot drop a 400-pound weight, which is almost everywhere, then something like the double kettlebell swing is something that you should consider. They are the same basic movement pattern. They are hip snap movement patterns, which basically means standing up really well. Most people in the modern world do not stand up very well because most people in the modern world are adapted to sitting. We sit down in cars, we sit down on trains, we sit down on planes, we sit down at work. Most people are generally chair-shaped, so everybody should have some type of version of a deadlift pattern, whether it be a deadlift in the gym or a kettlebell swing at home, in order to help them learn to stand all the way up again and fire their muscles as hard as possible. Where the kettlebell swing differs is that it's a lighter weight and you don't drop it, so it turns from a pure strength training exercise into a strength endurance exercise. You may start with something like 6 reps, but you build up towards sets of 20, which is different than barbell, where you're probably working on sets of 1 to 5. Normally, people work on the two-handed kettlebell swing first. That means 2 hands on 1 kettlebell, because that's very hard for almost everybody in the modern world. And you need to work on that for maybe 2 to 3 years and work your way up to maybe 20 to 24K for the ladies and about 32K for the men. And you're building up to probably at least 10 sets of 20. We have entire programs based on that progression. Don't just try to jump right to the end. It's like trying to just deadlift 400 pounds on your first day. Not a great idea. The 2-hand kettlebell swing, 2 hands on 1 kettlebell, goes to the hand-to-hand kettlebell swing, where you start learning to change hands. When you go hand-to-hand, you are firing the X of your core. Hand crosses across your core to your opposite leg for every rep. Then there's just single arm swings, where you take all the load and you leave it on one side of your body, which makes your abs substantially stronger for a much lower weight. Then you move into your clean and press, your snatch, all these other kettlebell techniques that you absolutely need to know. And usually after 2 to 3 years, people can have the option of moving towards a double kettlebell movement. Your double kettlebell swing is built on your double kettlebell deadlift. Double kettlebell deadlift. Handles are perpendicular to your body. Step up to your bell. Feet wide enough that the 2 bells are in between. Track down, stand all the way up. This is always the intro. We're always work on the deadlift before we introduce the swing. When you deadlift, the kettlebell moves straight up and down. Think of the weight of the bell as constant. When we introduce the swing, the kettlebells essentially get light at the top, but they get heavier than their physical weight at the bottom because they are accelerating down. The faster you move, the heavier the bells weigh at the bottom. Put the kettlebells, and when they are touching, touch them with the insteps of your feet to make sure your feet are in the correct distance. Step back 12 to 18 inches. There may be some slight turnout when you're doing double bells because your feet are wider apart. With single bells, your feet should be directly under your shoulders. With double bells, they will be wider than that. Take 2 hands, push into the crease of the hip. Weight is in the glutes, your weight is in your heel. At no point during this movement should your heels lift up off of the ground unless you're doing an advanced sport technique. Thumbs point towards the sky, thumb point down. Grab the corners of the kettlebell. Hike the weight back. Push back, stand up. Push back, stand up, back. Push back, set it back down. The final position is the same as the starting position. Most people get hurt when they are setting the bells down because they will push back and they will straighten their legs to put the bells down. Don't do that. The goal of training is not to get hurt so you can train tomorrow. Set the bells down in the exact same position as you pick them up. Let's look at that again. Push back. Weight in your heels. Your knee is behind the line of your toe. If your knees are further forward than your toe, then drive back, back, back. If your knees are forward, you're gonna load the tops of your legs around your knees. If your knees are behind the line of your toe, you're gonna use the bigger muscles in your glutes and in your hamstrings. 70% of the muscles in your body are in the back. They're not the ones you see in the mirror. The muscles that make you strong are your posterior chain, the ones in the back. There is a thumb up technique that sport guys use, but if you are new to this, don't do it. Because if your hips and your arms move out of phase, then you could overload your elbows and cause yourself injury. The goal is not to get hurt. Thumbs point back. If anything goes wrong, your arms will bend at the elbow instead of snapping at the elbow. Lean back against the weight. Drive the shoulders away from the ears to fire the lats. The lats stay on the entire time. Don't let them go. Push back, stand up. Push back, stand up. Push back, stand up. Push back, stand up. Inhale, exhale, in at the bottom, out at the top. In, out, in, out, in, out. Push back, set it down. Sit back in your heels. The most important part is that you are standing all the way up at the top. I repeat this coaching cue all the time because when people go to a new exercise or a heavier exercise, the first thing I see is bent knees and some kind of tuck or arch in the tailbone. Both of those things will not help you go up in weight. They will most likely get you hurt. So if we see bent legs at the top, people are not standing all the way up. Drive down through the heels, straighten the legs all the way out. Drive the back of the knee back. No arch in here because your glutes are not on. You are not protecting your lower back. Tuck your tailbone underneath. Squeeze your glutes. If you do not have glutes of steel after practicing kettlebell swings, you are definitely doing it wrong. Abs on. That means rib cage down. In the modern world, most people are rib cage up, tailbone back from seated position because their hip flexors aren't doing their job correctly. Tuck underneath, belly in, abs on. At the top, no higher than shoulder height. Any higher than shoulder height, people tend to lift their rib cage. They tend to compress their lower back. Don't do that, that's bad. Rib cage down, lats on. Breathe behind the abs. The abs are on the entire time. Double kettlebelling is more expensive. Right now we're using competition adjustable kettlebells, which are the best money you can possibly spend on your health and fitness because you get 19 weights inside of each bell. That means you can change by 1K in each bell at a time. That means that you can make the smallest possible jump because it is not a linear jump in weight. The faster you move, the more it weighs at the bottom. If you have the Wildman adjustable bell, you get half K plate jumps. That helps a lot. That's the reason we designed that bell. Half K jumps means you are more likely to succeed. Most people need to go to lighter weights when they go to double bells because you are doubling the load on your body. If you're using single 24K for clean and press, going to double 24K is pretty hard for most people. Most people will not be able to open or control their spine. So most people will need to go down in weight. If you're using 24K for your single clean and press, probably go down to your double 16s. Double 16K is 32K. But because you're not holding with two hands on one object, they move independently. The way that you swing, the way that you catch, your dynamics change a little bit. Go down in weight, probably 60% of your clean and press weight, and then take that as the weight of each individual kettlebell. Kettlebells are harder on your core for most people than barbell. Kettlebells will force you into better position. You have to learn your double swing so you can learn your double clean, so you can learn your double clean and press. That's where you're going to build tons of muscle. and you're going to get the most benefit for your athleticism in the least amount of time. The double kettlebell clean is what you might think of as a monster building technique. Almost every athletic program that you do where you actually lift weights for conditioning involves some version of a clean. A clean is getting weights up to shoulder height. You practice it with barbell, you practice it with kettlebell, with dumbbell, with heavy club, with sandbag, with Atlas stone. Being able to get weights up in front of you is a basic human skill, and you should be very, very good at it. Barbells are better for building absolute strength, but kettlebells are better for building strength endurance. Think about barbelling, you're doing sets of 1 to 5 for the most part for most types of barbell training. That of course varies. With kettlebells, you're starting with sets of 5, you add volume, which means you add more sets of 5, and then over time you get to the point where you don't put the weight down. So instead of lifting a 300-pound barbell 3 times, you lift 2 50 to 70-pound kettlebells for 10 minutes without stopping. You count your reps and you try to get faster all the time. 2 separate forms of training, both build monsters. You should do both at some point in your athletic career. Competition kettlebells are different than hardstyle kettlebells. They are all the same regardless of weight. That means your technique can be the same no matter what. Let's talk about the single kettlebell clean first, then we'll talk about the slight differences in the double kettlebell clean. In the single kettlebell clean, start with your feet pointed straight ahead. With a single kettlebell clean, your feet would be directly underneath your shoulders. We don't need to be wide because we don't need to do that. We don't need to turn out. Those are techniques that people adapt from barbell, but the whole goal of kettlebelling is to learn to just stand up better. So think about being in a natural standing position. You walk with your feet straight ahead, or you should. Therefore, we want to lift single kettlebells with our feet generally straight ahead. Feet point straight ahead, feet are directly underneath our shoulders, normal standing posture. You need to be good at standing if you want to be good at everything else. Step back 12 to 18 inches, feet are still straight ahead. Thumb points towards the sky, thumb points down. L of your hand goes to the corner, the L of the kettlebell. Push the weight back, snap your hips up, squeeze your glutes at the top. The goal is to stand all the way up. If your knees are bent and your glutes are back, you're probably not standing all the way up. Start by straightening your legs out, tuck your tailbone underneath, squeeze your glutes. If you do not have glutes of steel, your back is probably going to hurt. Push, thumb points back, kettlebell close to the body, snap your hips, stand all the way up. Straight legs, squeeze glutes. Thumb points back at the bottom or down. The goal is to stand up all the time at the top. When you set it down, push it back, set it back down 12 to 18 inches in front of you, exactly where you picked it up from. With double kettlebells, your feet are going to be slightly wider. Normal kettlebell width, double kettlebell width. You might get some turnout if it's comfortable for your knees. I tend to advocate for feet straight ahead even in this position because I'm pulling that position from classical horse stance without turnout. I'm pulling it from actual horse riding stance, which is feet pointed straight ahead. Get your width by standing just outside kettlebell width, step back. Same cue as with single arm, 12 to 18 inches. Thumb points towards the sky, thumb points down. Drive your shoulders down to engage your lats. If your shoulders are up and this muscle is loose, then you need to drive it down and flex it. You are connecting the weight to the posterior chain, all the muscles in the back of your body, by driving your shoulder down. If the lat is on, the abs try to go on, and you squeeze the glutes at the top of the clean, then you are getting the benefit from the exercise. If you leave out the glute squeeze and you leave out this part, you're probably not going to get a lot of the benefit from the exercise. Thumbs towards the sky, thumbs down, get down, sit back in your heels, pull the weights back, push the weights back, keep them close to your body, stand all the way up, squeeze your glutes at the top. Legs need to be perfectly straight. Thumb points back. Thumb points back. Thumb points back. Stand all the way up every time. Legs straight, glutes on, rib cage down, squeeze abs, drive shoulders away from the ears. When you set them down, push back, set it down exactly where you picked them up. In the beginning, people will make several errors. When they set up, they will turn out really far and they won't be able to get down effectively. Point your hips generally straight ahead, grab the weights, drive the shoulders away from the ear, and lean back against the weights. You'll see people try to start this with straighter legs and a rounded back. Consider that bad and don't do it. Weight back, lean against the weights, squeeze the lats to get that starting position. Keep the weights close to your body. When you get the weights up, get your fingers out of the way. Squeeze your elbows together. The goal is to make your forearms vertical. You'll hear every time I do it, this lower corner of the kettlebell clacks, but I'm moving my fingers out of the way so I'm not slamming them together. Thumbs point back, catch. Thumbs point back, catch. Thumbs point back, catch. Your catch is the same as it is with single hand. These are not barbell grips. Kettlebell down at a 45-degree angle. If your hand is up and your fingers are in the way, you can do it that way. You will see people do it that way. But this technique is going to allow you to lift longer, which is the eventual point of kettlebells. Endurance weightlifting. We have that 45-degree down on each side. Our forearms are vertical. Our fingers are out of the way on every catch. Things that people do wrong. They set up at the beginning wrong. They don't catch with their wrist in the correct position. They don't have their elbows close together. They try to barbell grip it. They try to set it on their shoulders. Do your single arm. Do a swing program, a clean and press program for probably 3 years before you need to get to double kettlebells. Double kettlebells take away your ability to cheat one side different than the other. Oftentimes when people kettlebell single hand, one side of their spine is more mobile. One side is less mobile. Their technique is slightly different on either side of their body. By going to double bells, you force each side to move the same in order to go up in reps and go up in speed and go up in weight. Today we are going to work on the double kettlebell clean and press. This is the exercise if you really want to develop a truly Herculean physique, absolutely anywhere, barn, field, forest, back of a truck, workshop, anywhere. This is the one that builds the most muscle in the least amount of time. The double kettlebell clean and press sits on top of a bunch of other training you should probably do first in order to do it the best you possibly could. People tend to start out with two-hand single kettlebell swing. They go to hand-to-hand kettlebell swing. They go to start-stop kettlebell, two-handed swing, start-stop alternating kettlebell swing. Then they build up to single arm kettlebell clean and then single arm kettlebell press. Most people will benefit highly from running a program with that for 3 to 5 years, starting with a lightweight, building up to a heavyweight. Gentlemen are targeting 32K, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 reverse ladders for at least 5 sets. That is the goal. When you get to that, you can probably go to double kettlebell. The ladies, depending on frame size, might be targeting 12K to maybe 20K, but you can see ladies doing that all the way up to 24K, depending on frame size. That's highly variable. With our double kettlebell clean and press, we need to know the double kettlebell swing first, the double kettlebell clean, and then once we get to shoulder height and we're happy with how our hands are lining up in the rack position or catching the weight at shoulder height, then we add the press. There are a couple of versions of this exercise. We're going to talk about the classic strength training version, and we'll talk about sport style versions in other videos. The classic style is the easiest for people to learn and they get the most benefit in the least amount of time. You have 2 kettlebells, 8 inches apart, means that we need about 16 inches plus a little bit extra for safety between your knees at the bottom. Depending on how tall you are, that changes what it looks like. We are back from our kettlebell, 12 to 18 inches. Thumbs point towards the sky. thumbs point down. Shoulder drives away from the ear and engage the lat. At the top, squeeze your glutes, rib cage down. Thumbs turn down, engage the lats. Get down, grab the corner of the kettlebell, the L of the kettlebell. It is not a barbell grip, it is a kettlebell grip. Grab it in the corner, fire your lats, lean back, head up, chest up, tailbone down, push the weights back, snap up, rack position. Your rack position is important. Your wrists need to be flat, elbows close together. If you're doing barbells or you're setting the kettlebells up on your shoulder, you could be doing it better. Kettlebells together, squeeze your glutes on the press. Open, press. Let the kettlebell sit back behind you. On the way down, bring your hands together. You'll hear the corner of the kettlebell handles touch. On the clean, thumbs point back, lats on. Handles touch. Open press, bring it down, handles touch. Press, bring it down. Press, bring it down. When you set the weights down, push the weights back. Track them back out in front, 12 to 18 inches. Set them all the way down. There's a bunch of interesting things about the math of kettlebelling. Common weights for men are 16, 24, and 32K. Those weights are in the ranges of weight that people have carried for all of human history. If you look at it in a military context, 1,000 rounds of 5.56 or 1,000 rounds of 9mm is in the 35-pound range. If you are looking at it in the context of farming, a bag of grain weighs 50 pounds or 24K. If you're looking at it in a context of wearing armor, from the Romans to armored soldiers in Britannia, to armor in Italy in the Renaissance, you're looking in the range of 50 to 70 pounds. Learning to not put down 35 to 70 pounds for 10, 20, or 30 minutes tends to make people very resilient in the real world. When you go to double kettlebells, you make those weights 50% of what you can do for time. Granted, it's a lot different than that. Double kettlebells are truly an awful, mind-numbing, horrific experience if you do them for any length of time. When you do single kettlebells, you can learn to pick a weight up, but you can change hands in order to survive longer. With double kettlebells, you don't get to put the weights down. It's really pretty horrible. 235s equals 70. 224s is 106 pounds. Double 32s puts you at 140 pounds. The interesting thing about that, if you do double 32s, it makes 32 your 50% weight forever. It means that 32 becomes lighter forever. Errors that people make when doing double kettlebells, probably 4 things. Kettlebells tracking below the line of the knee, not staying close to the hip, not pausing in rack position on the way up and the way down to emphasize your standing structure, not locking out the elbows overhead, and not letting the kettlebells drift back behind you. When you do it right, the kettlebells are close to your body, close to your center line, close to your body. When you do it wrong, the elbows are down by the knees and the kettlebells are too low to the ground. Close to the body means your forearm impacts high up on the inside of your leg with both arms. That means that you are loading your hips. If your forearm is down at the height of your knee, the kettlebells are low, you are loading less of your hips and more of your lower back. The goal of all training is to not get hurt. That means load your hips, not your lower back. If you get hurt, you cannot train tomorrow. You get further from your goals, not closer to your goals. The next thing that goes wrong, people try to skip the pause in the rack position because they're not good at rack position. Your forearms should be vertical, elbows close together. Bring the weights in front of you. Get your fingers out of the way for the catch. Don't bend your elbows, don't rest them on your shoulders. You'll see this a lot in CrossFit. Avoid that. Just get stronger. Focus on standing straight up here. You can make the pauses in the rack position as long as you want, but make them at least 1/1000 long. On the press, people will not lock out their elbows. Lock up and allow the kettlebells to drift back behind you so that your arms are straight. Bring it down, pause. The bent elbows tends to come from people not having shoulder mobility, and not letting your arms track back tends to mean people are lacking mobility in their chest. Stretch your chest both before and after this exercise. With barbells, people's hands are wider and they can change how they do it. With kettlebells, there's kind of no way out. You either get the mobility from doing it or not. The important part on the press is that your body is like iron. When you're in your rack, your glutes are tight. As you do the press and you press your chest forward, your glutes stay on the entire time. Some people will try to get it by letting their glutes go and rounding their back to press their chest forward. There are some sport techniques that do that. That is for advanced athletes. For the most part, 99% of the population will benefit from keeping their glutes engaged the entire time. If you do not practice double kettlebell clean and press, you absolutely should. Double kettlebell clean and press does not require all the equipment that barbelling does. It is cheap, it is affordable, it can go in the back of your truck, and you can do it almost anywhere. The most important part of training is that you understand what you need to do, why you need to do it, and that you can do it in the greatest number of locations so that you are able to comply with your own program. If you don't do training, it doesn't matter how sexy your training ideas are, they have to be something that you can do every day.